Hi there, and welcome back. It's Halloween week. I'm a little bit behind, so I sent you a message. If you want to turn in your comment for this week's discussion on Thursday, feel free to do so. Also, keep in mind that your submission date, which is usually Saturday, I've moved to Sunday, November 1st. I know that for some people, Halloween is their favorite holiday of the year, either because they're really into costumes or um, they're really into gore and creepy stuff, and that's fine. Yeah, I'm not going to make you do it. Even I'm not that sadistic. So you can have your reply posts up by this Sunday, and that'll be fine. What better week to talk about Edgar Allan Poe? Arguably America's best genre writer ever. Let's talk a little bit about why. Well, for one thing, he's considered a master of many different genres: horror, detective, and the supernatural. You can even put sci-fi in there, I think. And he's considered by some critics to be, the originary point for those genres. But he was also really good at literary criticism. And he wrote fiction, he wrote poetry, he wrote nonfiction articles all over the map. Very, very prolific. He really expanded the American imagination, especially when it came to different fiction forms. So much to I just give you one line for this. Hopefully, you're reading the biographical notes for all of these, and if you did, you realize that he had a really unstable, happy family life. Was not happy at all, and some people who would psychoanalyze him say that a lot of that seeps into his work. That's an argument for a different day, but I think the biographical information is always helpful. He did study at University of Virginia at 1826, and then at West Point 1830. It was hard to get formal education to stick with Poe. He was very much his own person and stubborn and confrontational, adversarial at times. Another way of putting all that is, well, he was plagued by alcoholism. He had a terrible drinking problem for most of his adult life. Uh, very furious anger episodes. A lot of that can come out of being an alcoholic or being drunk all the time, and also a compulsive gambler. Um, he just loved just gambling it away. It's a hard thing for me to understand. If of all my vices, gambling really isn't mine. But that's where he was. And some of you might also know that his death is surrounded by a shroud of mystery. He was found um, drunkenly at a polling station uh, in different clothes quite a few times and died shortly thereafter. And some people speculate as to what the cause was. Was he part of some kind of elaborate ruse where he was paid liquor to vote several times in other people's clothes? It's never been fully resolved. So I guess that's kind of fitting to an author that's so into mystery. And finally, it's hard to overestimate the cultural ripples that we are still feeling in our society today because of Edgar Allan Poe. Um, he is widely influential still. I mean, if you read horror at all, Stephen King, for example, or maybe you're an H.P. Lovecraft fan who's got amazing imagination, although really terrible kind of politics. Um, you owe a lot of that pleasure back to Edgar Allan Poe. If you're into detective fiction, again, he was a really powerful early force in that also. So There's a little bit of beginning about him. Now, I had you read two short stories. Mask of the Red Death. Wow, I just thought it was really appropriate. You've got a bunch of people in the Renaissance who are wealthy and secluded, gathering in a castle to wait out the plague outside. And of course, one of the intruders ends up being the plague itself personified. If you want to talk about, contemporary analogies of that, you can think about people who are sequestering themselves against the virus at, the highest levels of wealth and power in our country, but letting the plague in. Some of you might remember the announcement for our now Supreme Court Judge Amy Coney Barrett that took place at the White House and became a super spreader event because people weren't wearing masks. And that's when Donald Trump and a lot of other important government figures came down with the virus. So there's an interesting analogy there. Oh, and that brings me to talk a little bit about Halloween. I know for some of you, if it is a really important holiday to you, celebrate it, have fun. Do keep in mind that you're still contagious, even if it is a fun holiday. Don't be going to super packed mouth breather parties where people aren't keeping distance and wearing cloth masks. They're just wearing a plastic mask or a rubber mask of, Baby Yoda or whatever like that. That's not going to protect them or you. So yeah, the virus is going to take a day off. If you have questions about how to keep yourself safe, if there are any changes in protocols in order to limit the spread of the virus, you can always check our homepage for more COVID information. That's, of course, chaffey.edu. Quickly, I'd like to say a few notes about the fall of the House of Usher. Now, this story's got a lot more to it than the Mask of the Red Death. And I think it really helps to put into clear focus dark romanticism or American Gothicism, if you want to call it that, on that very first page, he talks about the landscape being terrible or awful, that sense of overwhelming horror. That's something that comes straight out of the Romanticist playbook. An utter depression of soul which I can compare to no earthly sensation more than properly to the after dream of the reveler upon opium. So in other words, what I'm seeing is so desolate, only somebody wasted on drugs would be able to relate to this. And that idea of this internal subjective experience being the override, again, is really important to that. It is really important to that notion of romanticism. Our narrator also says that, on that page 2, in the end of that first paragraph, it was possible, I reflected, a mere different arrangement of the particulars of the scene, of the details of this picture, would be sufficient to modify or perhaps to annihilate its capacity for sorrow impression. And, acting upon this idea, I reined in my horse to the precipitous brink of a black and lurid tarn, that's like a pond, that lay in the unruffled luster by the dwelling, and gazed down, but with a shoulder even more thrilling than before, upon the remodeled and inverted images of the gray sedge, and the ghastly tree stems, and the vacant and eye-like windows. So basically what he is saying there is that right before that, I should have said that part first, he says it's a mystery all insoluble. Nor could I grapple with the shadowy fancies that crowded upon me as I pondered. I was forced to fall back upon this unsatisfactory conclusion that while beyond doubt there are combinations of very simple natural objects which have the power of thus affecting us, still the reason and the analysis of this power lie among considerations beyond our depth. So here, reason is failing him. The whole idea that he can analyze his way out and say, oh, well, sure, it's the lighting. Yeah, old things can look scary. Creepy dark ponds also can, inspire an emotional effect. But at the same time, even though his rational mind knows that, he can't shake it. He is still getting creeped out here. Again, that's so important to Romanticism. Now, coming up after that, he gives a description of the Usher race. And remember, it's this family that has a very narrow family tree. It doesn't really branch off very much. So there's this turning in upon itself, which again feels subjective. Usually with a family tree, you've got like, you know, a, two people that are, the originators, like the great ancestors, and then they have children, and then they have children, they have children, and they have children. But here it's just kind of like tight, 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 which suggests something unnatural, right? Turning inwards upon oneself and not being able to go get out of oneself. And again, that's the idea of being trapped inside one's mind and one's family, inside one's familial mind in a way. Sometimes being trapped in your mind is a great thing. I mean, we can have, a really pleasant daydream where we're just, thinking about something wonderful or getting lost in, thinking about a book we read or a song and just thinking and having this natural thinking high, which is great. And anybody looking at you just thinks, you're spacing out perhaps. That's the wonderful part of it. The negative part, of course, is being trapped in your mind when things are going terribly. Now, I already talked about this a little bit before, but I'm going to bring up the idea of Satan as a romantic hero in John Milton's Paradise Lost. One of his most famous lines is, the mind can make a heaven a hell or a hell a heaven. And I think we've all been in that situation where we're in a beautiful place, but something in our mind is just making us dark. Or we could be in a really creepy or not pleasant place, but we're ecstatic. We're having a great time. And again, it's about that subjectivity of experience that is internal and is hard to convey outside. A description of what Roderick Usher looks like on the bottom page 631. That last paragraph: cadaverous complexion, very pallid, liquid eyes, a nose of a delicate Hebrew model. Think about how he's using ethnicity to other Roderick. That's another kind of dark romanticist trope. And it also brings us to remember the 19th century idea of phrenology. Now, phrenology isn't just a fantastic album by The Roots. It's this 19th century pseudoscientific practice of looking at the dimensions and geometry of somebody's skull and face and assessing their morality and intelligence based on it. And it's a totally racist practice, but it was quite common in the 19th century. And so there's a bit of that in there too. The other thing we need to remember about Roderick is he comes off as sickly and pale, almost vampiric in appearance. And that wasting away of the body is a romanticist trope as well, too. Tuberculosis or consumption was often considered to be the ultimate romanticist disease, because even though you're wasting away, this is when consumption meant something bad, you get this flushed look on your face, like you are going through some kind of otherworldly sense of physical thrill or ecstasy. There's also a sense of male hysteria that we find in him, and also the idea that the brother and sister, Roderick and Madeline, perhaps look too much like each other. They are perhaps, both the same person in some way.